Welcome to Town Talk. I'm your host, Rose Highland Sharpe. This very inspirational program is brought to you by Highland Communications for storytelling and much more. Call 910-528-0718 and support the Wheels to Work program with your tax-deductible donation of a car or cash by calling 910-944-7149. Give cars that work to people that work. I'm so excited today to present to you the highlights of the 2015 A Brunch with Black Pioneers, UNC-Chapel Hill at the Sherrington in Chapel Hill. The Real Nitty Gritty, the Black experience at UNC a half-century ago. The moderator of this event, Walter A. Jackson, class of 67. Invocation by James E. Jimmy Barnes, class of 69. And of course the panelists include Karen Parker, class of 65. Bill Cooper, class of 68. Jimmy Barnes, 69. And John Sellars, 71. We also want to thank all the committee members for the Black Pioneers Committee 2015, including, of course, the chair, once again, Walter A. Jackson, Jimmy Barnes, Karen L. Parker, Karen Robinson, and, of course, Otto White, class of 65. And Mark V. Reed, class of 90, one of the youngsters, chairperson for the 2015 Black Alumni Reunion. And of course, I'm Rose Highland Sharpe, class of 1980 and 83. Enjoy the service and the program.
I mentioned that there were about 17 of us who entered in my freshman class. And at that time, there were only 2 African-American women, undergraduate African-American women on campus. And I'm pleased that one of them is with us this morning. So, whereas we didn't have the quantity in terms of African-American women, we had 2 good-looking women, and as you see, one of them is here with us this morning. Karen Parker became the first African-American woman to ever achieve an undergraduate degree from UNC. We have other first women. Bill Cooper, seated at the end of the table, who at that time was known as Willie Cooper Jr., was the first African-American ever to play for UNC. That was before Charlie Scott, before Lawrence Taylor, before Brad Daugherty, before any of the other African-American athletes. Bill Cooper is the man who helped open the door. Jimmy Barnes, seated here to my right, was one of the very first graduates of the UNC School of Pharmacy. I think he was actually the second. John Sellars, seated next to him, who graduated from the university in 1971, was one of the first members of the Black student movement. Yes. When I was here, we didn't have the BSM. I graduated in 1967. John and his colleagues who came right after me founded the BSM in 1967. This morning we're here to tell our story, the real nitty-gritty. What life was like for African-American students at UNC a half-century ago. Now, we didn't all have the same experience. By the way, the late Whitney Young had a great little expression. We didn't all come over on the same ship, but we're in the same boat now. How many of you know the story of the 7 blind men and the elephant? Let me quickly give you a little review of it. 7 blind men went to a circus, and they had never seen or experienced an elephant before. They were all curious as to what this thing, an elephant that they had heard so much about, was. So they were taken into the circus and taken up to the elephant, and one put out his hand and just happened to touch the elephant on his side. He said, "Oh, an elephant is very much like a wall." Another one reached out and he just happened to grab the elephant by his tusk, and he said, "No, an elephant is very much like a spear." Another one grabbed the elephant by his tail and said, "No, an elephant is very much like a rope." Still another put his arms out and put his arms around one of the legs and said, "No, an elephant is very much like a tree." And maybe another one grabbed the elephant's trunk and said, "No, an elephant is very much like a snake." So they were all partially right, but none of them had the complete picture. As we tell our stories this morning, keep in mind that each of us has a totally different perspective. And you'll just be hearing from 4 different perspectives this morning. By the way, we also had lined up on the program this morning the first African-American cheerleader at Carolina, Jimmy Womack. Jimmy became ill, as a matter of fact, had a heart attack, and I visited him in the hospital a week ago. Up until yesterday, he was still hoping to get here today, but did not make it. He shared with me some stories of his experiences, and perhaps I'll share one or two of them on his behalf as we go through the day. Kermit the Frog once said, being green isn't easy. Being black at Carolina 50 years ago was not easy. Some of you who came more recently are probably thinking, well, being black here 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And if there are current undergraduates, you might say being black here now isn't easy. And I think you're probably right. But of course, we're talking differences of degree. And with regard to it being easy, hey, this is Carolina. It's not supposed to be easy. This is an elite university. If it was easy, all kinds of people, practically everybody might try to come here for a degree. So unless you're brilliant, and I mean absolutely brilliant, it's not supposed to be easy. So young undergraduates, keep faith in yourself. Undergraduate students still to come. And again, things will work out. It's a pleasure to have all of you here this morning as we share our stories. And we changed the order of the program around a little bit because the inspirational service was running a little long. So we had the invocation by Jimmy Bonds before some of you arrived. But we're going to pick up now and perhaps proceed with the program somewhat as listed. And the very first thing is to have a welcome by Regina Newell Stephens, who will be subbing for Mark Reed, who was the chair of this year's Black Alumni Reunion. Regina is our chair for next year, and she's going to welcome you. Please, Regina.
So good morning. Good morning. And welcome to our final bar event. And I mean, this is fantastic just to look out and to know that you all are just as thrilled and excited to hear the real nitty gritty as I am. I am certain this is going to be a great panel and a great experience for us. Walter Jackson is, in a word, awesome. He is just fantastic to work with. I know this is going to be great. I welcome you all. I thank you for coming, and I look forward to you all coming to Bar 2016. Thank you so much.
Everyone here this morning is somebody. I want you all to give yourselves a hand for being here. I do want to recognize some individuals, however, starting with other Black pioneers. We have 4 of them here, but there are others in the audience. With the other Black pioneers in the audience, please stand. 5. So I'm not going to ask them all to introduce themselves individually, but all of them have had outstanding careers. Among others, we have a judge, a university professor, a distinguished physician, and others. UNC faculty and staff members who are present, if you would please stand and be recognized. Members of the Bar Planning Committee. Second generation Tar Heels, African Americans whose parents also went here. If you would please stand and be recognized. Again, 52 years ago today, I could not imagine a scenario such as we're looking at right now. GAA staff members, I just saw Marcy Moore walk away from the door. Tania Pettis is out there at the front desk, but they have been stellar along with other members of the staff. Let's give them a hand. Finally, are there any elected officials in the room? I saw State Senator Angela Bryant earlier. Yes, Senator Bryant. Judge Hoover. Others. Candidates. Met at least one candidate who's also a Carolina alumnus this morning. Again, honored to have each and every one of you with us. I'd like to, at this point, invite Ms. Livingston Taylor from the Southern Oral History Program to come up, and she is going to extend an invitation to some to participate in the Southern Oral History Project. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you so much, and I'm from the Southern Oral History Program, as Mr. Jackson said, and I'm in charge of the undergraduate internship program, and as part of that, my students, who are actually over there, collect interviews with individuals, and our project this year is the Black Pioneers. So if you are interested in sharing your story with us, we would love to put you in our database of over 6,000 oral histories, because we think this is an important story that must be told. So please just come see me after the brunch, and I will give you a brochure and get your contact information. I'll be right over there. Thank you so much.
Again, we think that work is very important because someday there won't be any more Black pioneers. A number of us have departed already. A lot of us, others of us, as you can see, have our little physical challenges, but we are keeping the faith. And we want to make sure our story is told before we're all gone. So I would encourage any of you who have not yet done so to get together with the Southern Oral History Program staff to share your story. I'm going to delay. Is Dr. Karen Robinson Garris in the house?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay. Good morning, Dr. Robinson. Karen. I have a friend who likes to call medical doctors real doctors, so Karen is a real doctor, but let's not have anybody getting sick just because we have a physician in the house. As I said, pioneers are passing on. And within the last year, we lost a great Black pioneer, Jim Garris, who was married to Karen for how long? 36 years. Karen, would you come up, please? As I said, Jim Garris was a true Black pioneer and a tremendous member of the Black Pioneer team. He worked with us in establishing the Black Pioneers in 2008. He was a graduate of the university and was instrumental in establishing some of the first programs at the university that were directed to bringing in more African American students. Some of you perhaps benefited from his work if you joined the university perhaps in the late 60s or early 70s. Following his graduation from Carolina, Jim went on to Columbia Law School and at some point met this lovely lady and they got married and had children. And Jim was a true Tar Heel, and both of their children attended school at Carolina. As we worked on pioneer programs over the years, since 2008, Jim was right there with us every step of the way. I think it's fair to say that he was perhaps an iconoclast and maybe the conscious conscience of the organization and kept us on task. He passed away last December. And Karen, we would like to present to you this little memento just in memory of Jim and the work that he did. It reads, Black Pioneers, James A. Jim Garris, 69, founding member, UNC Black Pioneers. In appreciation of his dedication and service to the university and the UNC Black Pioneers, November 8, 2015.
Walter has really put me on the spot. And my name is Karen. I don't have all those titles, but thank you for that. For all the experiences I think that all of us as Black people have had, no matter where we've gone to school, and it's more struggle and then reward. And for what I've heard from all of you that were the challenges here, Jim always had a very positive spin on his experience. He was part of the pep band, and he seemed to manage to eke out some enjoyment from his time here at Carolina, even though he had the same challenges that many of you have had. And for that, I'm thankful, because by the time our kids were early teens, they were determined that they were going to come to Carolina as well, for which I'm thankful, because they have both gone on to have really good experiences here. So I'm also thankful that the Black Pioneers have come together as they have and promoted celebrations of our victory as Black people in education, as these kinds of meetings do. Lift us up in celebration and remind us how far we've come, and always to lift up our young people who we hope continue to forge forward. So thank you for this acknowledgement, and God bless us all, especially our young people. God bless you all as you go forward. Thank you.
Karen used an interesting phrase. She said Jim managed to eke out some enjoyment at Carolina. I think that's a good way to describe the experience of just about all of us. We have some horror stories among us, but we also have, I think almost universally, some good times at Carolina also. So as we talk this morning, you're going to hear probably some of those horror stories, but I hope perhaps that you will hear some of the more positive experiences also. I'm going to start by just asking each member of the panel to take about, and by the way, obviously, we got some real talkers up here, by the way. Obviously, each person up here could spend 2 hours talking about his or her experiences, but we only have a brief amount of time, so I'm going to try to be a bit of a taskmaster in keeping us on point and moving this thing along. But I'm going to start by asking each member of the panel to just take about 2 minutes and tell us where you were from. What was your hometown when you came to Carolina? What year you came to Carolina? What you studied? And maybe just a little bit about what life has been about for you since then. And I think I'll start on the end with Bill Cooper. Bill?
Yes. Yes. I'm one of those that has some knee problems from basketball days or whatever. But anyway, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Willie Cooper from Elm City, North Carolina. I came to Carolina in 1964. My first trip here was in summer school, and I want to say recruited, but there was a recruitment effort at that time to get black student athletes here in Carolina. And Coach Dean Smith was very slow in doing that. And so there were some alumni, graduate students who took the ball in their own hands and identified some folk that might fit the bill. One of the guys who they thought Dean should have recruited was Lou Hudson. Some of you older folks know him, from Greensboro, who played for Minnesota. The reason for not getting athletes, Afro-American athletes, given by the school and Dean Smith was that they could not score high enough on the college boards. And so I'm here today because my high school team in Elm City had won 2 state championships and had a 72-game winning streak. And that caught the eye of some folk. And they inquired, and before I knew it, somebody was down in Elm City with a little Super 8 camera taking a picture of my games and getting my expectations high. Are you cutting me off? Getting my expectations high to come to Carolina. And Dean said to them, if he's as good as Bobby Lewis, some of you may know how good he really was, that he would give me a scholarship. But when the movies came back, he said I wasn't good enough.
Okay, why don't you hold that part until a little later in the program?
Okay.
All right, great, thank you. All right. Karen Parker, the first African-American female undergraduate from UNC. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Karen. 2 minutes. Okay.
I'm from Winston-Salem. I transferred here from WC, and for any problems I might have had, the women at WC, who a lot of them graduated way before I did down here, they had their horror stories too. So, you know, shout out to them because life was not easy up there. I was a journalism graduate, and I was a jailbird during the Chapel Hill civil rights demonstrations. We did have actual Chapel Hill demonstrations that went on for months here with a lot of kids and local people and people from other universities joining in the whole thing.
And you'll tell us about those a little later?
Yeah.
All right, great, thank you.
I had to tell you about filling up the jails, but that's about it. If I had not gone to UNC School of Journalism, I would not be what I am today, and I'm very thankful for that.
Now, with that mentioned by Karen, I'm going to go off script. Dr. Russell Peterson, who stood as a pioneer, married one of those earlier UNCG students. His wife, Poncetta, is here with us. Poncetta, when did you start at UNCG?
Women's College.
Which was then called Women's College.
1963.
So let's give her a hand also. John Sellars.
My name is John Sellars. Excuse me. My name is John Sellars. I'm from Burlington, North Carolina. Came to UNC in 1967. Actually, my first trip here was to play at a fraternity party. One of the frats over in frat court. I was playing with the Redland Blues Band, and we were going around getting bookings at different colleges. So we were playing at this fraternity party, and I had such a good time that I said, I'm going to Carolina. This is the way they party in Carolina. So that was one of my main motivations for coming to Carolina, because I was looking forward to partying here, get into fraternity. So, but after I got here, I realized that fraternity life was not for black guys coming out of North Carolina. But that was just my beginnings of Carolina, and actually my experience with Carolina basically served my life. A friend of mine told me that if you could go and live in North Carolina, the best thing to do would be to go to the University of North Carolina. I didn't understand at the time, but I do now, because I was able to meet people from all over the state, other people who were coming out of high school in 1967, and people who were prepared to deal with the confrontations that we had to deal with at UNC.
Mr. Jimmy Barnes.
Jimmy Barnes, can you hear me? No. Jimmy Barnes, can you hear me now? Yeah. Shout out to my Omega brothers in the house. I know somebody would like that. Get over it. I'm from Greenville, North Carolina, and from Greenville, kind of very loving. That was a year or two ahead of me in high school. And sort of recruited me here. Carolina was one of the most liberal places in North Carolina at the time. And said that maybe you should come here. And, we were trying to integrate. So I had worked in a drugstore, soda jerk and everything, so I liked pharmacy. So that was my interest from there. At that time, pharmacy was quite different. You solve the world problems, you get to meet a lot of people. It's quite interesting, face to face. The judges and everything would come in, the physicians, and it was quite different than it is now. It was just fascinating to me at the time. So I came and as Connie had told me, there was many different personalities. A very diverse place to meet people from all over the world. Actually, Carolina was very, very, very different from a lot of places. It wasn't a Jesse Helms type of place, just the opposite. So I really was fascinated and really had a chance to come in and discover a lot of things. Some good, some not so good, but quite an educational experience.
Great.
One that prepared me for a lot of things in life and successfully. Thank God for that.
And by the way, Jimmy retired from UNC and the hospital. All right, very good. I have no stories of my own, but I'm going to share with you a story that Jimmy Womack, who was my roommate for 1 year, and as I said, was the first black cheerleader, shared with me last Sunday, a little later in the day than this. He said his freshman year he was in the band, and that freshman year was 1963, before the Civil Rights Act of 1964 had been passed, so segregation was by and large the law of the land and practiced all around the South. The UNC football game was invited to the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, Florida that year. And I believe Jimmy was the only African-American member of the band, and he said that when he went out to get on the bus to go to Jacksonville with the other members of the band director called him aside and said, "Jimmy, now, you don't have to go on this trip with us, but if you go, of course you can't stay in the hotel with the other students, but I have made arrangements, reservations for you at another hotel, and it's up to you. You can come and stay at that hotel, or you can not go." Jimmy said, "No problem, I'll go." So he went on with the band to Jacksonville. He said, but what he hadn't counted on was standing out on the street at night, that night, with his suitcase, trying to get a cab to the black hotel on the other side of town. And he said cabs kept passing him by and none would stop. And finally he said he looked down the street and he saw a bus station, and there was a cab in front of the bus station with no driver in it. He said he took his bag and he went and he got in the cab thinking that, well, the only thing he can do is tell me to get out or take me to my destination. He said the cab driver came back and looked at him and said, "You're not from around here, are you?" And he figured the cab driver was going to try to take him on a circuitous route to bill the fare if he said he was not from around there. So he said, "Yes, I'm from here. I'm just coming back from vacation." So the cab driver started and took him to the other hotel, but somewhere en route or at his destination said to him, "I know you're not from here, because if you were from here, you would have known that these cabs that are painted colors are for white people. Blacks only ride in the white cabs." And he said that was one time, though, that discrimination worked in his favor, because he said the hotel where the band was staying was sort of a second-rate hotel. Didn't have air conditioning, no color TVs, swimming pool. He said the black hotel where they had put him up across town was first rate. Air conditioning, color TV, swimming pool. And he said when some of the white members came over to his place, they were just totally outdone with what he had. Okay, that's just one of the stories he shared with me. I'm going to go back to Bill Cooper and ask him to share with us a bit about, and Bill, take your time, well, within reason. up to 5 minutes or so to share with us a little bit about your experiences as a student at Carolina and as the first African-American basketball player here.
Well, let me finish up telling you how I got here.
Use mic.
When Dean Smith,
Hold it closer to.
There you go.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. When Dean Smith said that I was not good enough to get a scholarship, to be given a scholarship, but he said that if I made the freshman team and then the varsity the following year, he would give me a scholarship. Well, my parents, my foster parents, could not afford to send me that first year. And so I was in a pantry. Anyway, there was a lot of effort at that time to do the right thing. And someone in the admissions office found a scholarship that was available to students whose father fought in the war, military scholarship. And all you had to do was apply. And if your congressman signed off on it, you got it. So happened that one of my mentors was Reggie Fountain, whose uncle was L.H. Fountain, a congressman from Tarboro. And so they signed off on a scholarship, and I was at Carolina that summer in summer school. The problem with the money was settled. I'm not sure when Dean Smith found out about it, because the books I've seen from him kept saying if he had made it, I would have given him a scholarship. But I had a scholarship to go to any state-supported school in North Carolina. And I came here for that summer school, and I came from a very small high school, so we needed to find out how I could handle the schoolwork. So I took some courses. And discrimination started right away. Got a D on that first test, which was in one of those blue books, and that discouraged me. But anyway, my mentor, one of my mentors, took the blue book and took it to the department head, and he reviewed it, and he said, this is a B paper here. But they didn't change it. But the net of it is that I ended up getting a B out of the course. I got to meet Dean Smith that summer. Dean was hands off, as he's a gentleman, and we're not doing anything wrong. But anyway, he said if I made the team, freshman team in the varsity, the following year he'd give me a scholarship. Well, I didn't even question it because I didn't need the scholarship. I had a full boat. But anyway, that fall when I came back to school to go out for basketball, one of my mentors met Ken Roseman, who was the freshman coach, who was away that summer, and told him, I've got a black Afro-American guy that's going to go out for your team. And this is allegedly, okay, because Ken Roseman is dead now, but I trust my mentor. He said, no, use the N-word, is going to play on a team of mine. Now, I was not told this until years and years later, so I didn't know this at the time that I was going out, and it was a tough outing. I was 18 years old, dealing with all the things you deal with as a freshman in college, trying to keep your grades up, and then dealing with things that were involved in going out. Every Friday you had to check the board to see if you had been cut. And finally, I made the team. I won't go into the details, but during the course of that, going out for the team, my skills were in the defensive area. And so I was playing second string, and he put me on Larry Miller. I don't know whether anybody remembers Larry or not, but he was a powerhouse All-American that Dean Smith had competed with the coach over at Duke to get him. And one day I take a little tough on him, and he pushed me down. Told Kenny Roseman to take me off of him. And so my natural instinct was, you know what? But I didn't do it. And he took me off of him. And so I made the team. And then after making the team, I don't care how many points we were ahead, I never got in until the last couple of minutes of the game. And the one thing that I really am positive about is when I finally got in that first game, my first shot was from the corner, and it was a high looping jump shot. You ball players know what that means, right? And that was the loudest roar that had occurred in that game. So it really made me feel good. But after we started playing, and I started getting in, it seemed that I got a larger share of the fouls relative to the amount of time that I played. The ref would not let me go near anybody. I'd get a foul. But anyway, at home it was great. Carolina, liberal school, but when we went away, that's when the things started happening. You got called the names, the N-word, the coon word, and on a trip to Virginia, we stopped at a restaurant to eat, and went in, and the owner said, well, we'll serve them, but we won't serve him. I couldn't believe it, right? This is North Carolina, UNC. We're wearing the uniform. But anyway, all the players and the coach got up and left. So that was a positive thing. When we went to Clemson's, I say we went to Clemson, South Carolina. I didn't go. They didn't give me the option that they gave my friend to go or not go. I did not go because of the environment was there. So that was kind of a negative thing. And then after the season, it is alleged that Kenny Roseman met my friend and apologized to him for using the N-word. And he said that I was one of the finest individuals that he had come across. So that was a positive. And that is when I came back in the fall for my sophomore year, I was going out for the team, and I wanted to room with the where the players stayed at, and went down to the admission office, and they assigned me a room with 3 football players. And I moved in. It was cold as ice in there. The next day, I got a call from Dean Smith, and in his typical way, Dean didn't tell me to move out, but he said, college roommates become best men at weddings, at their weddings, and explained to me that, anyway, I got the message. And it was soon thereafter that I decided that I was having some trouble with an accounting course, but I decided that this is not worth it. And so I went to see him and told him I was giving up the basketball. And he thanked me, and we got to be good friends after that. And one other thing, and that is that my daughter was a basketball player. She was all-state in Tennessee. And I wrote Dean Smith a letter and told him, asked him to take a look at her. And never heard back. Anyway, Hatcher came to Chattanooga to watch her play. And my daughter later found that Dean had written a letter to her telling her to take a look at Tanya Cooper. And Tanya got a full bowl scholarship and ended up playing on the national championship team in '93. And while I never got to wear gray, blue and white, however you want to call it, I lived my dream through my daughter.
I don't know about you all, but I'm inspired by just hearing about that. And I remember when Bill, Willie walked over the campus as a freshman. By the way, he spoke of this liberal university. Well, because when we came here, there were Confederate flags all around the place. And at halftime at the football and basketball games, the band would play Dixie, and everybody was expected to stand and sing Dixie. Jimmy Womack, the cheerleader whom I referenced, said that things were okay for him generally in Chapel Hill, but when he went on the road with the team, people would do things like throw oranges at him. Karen Parker, if you would please share some more of your story with us, and particularly, if you would please, some more of that information about the civil rights movement and demonstrations, or whatever else you care to share.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, ma'am.
I came in '63, very happy. It was beautiful. It was a wonderful fall and everything, and I'm tripping through the campus, and this is a beautiful campus, and I'm so happy to be here. And 2 months later, I was in jail. Somebody got me involved, said, you know, we got a civil rights movement going on here in town, and we're meeting in some black churches, and I went over there, and, you know, we'd sing these songs, you know, based on old Negro spirituals, and get all happy and everything, and they say, okay, now who wants to go out and get arrested? I went, okay, I'll go. I was supposed to be going to the journalism party, and I volunteered to go. We went up to this restaurant, and of course, the cops came, and we did the Martin Luther King thing. You're supposed to drop to the ground and go limp, and they have to carry you into the car. Did all that, went to the jail. Administration went crazy. Phone calls all over, parents calling, crying on the phone, get out of that jail. And the whole point was to stay there. We were supposed to fill the jails. Anyway, I gave in and got out. And from that point on, I sort of became an administration troublemaker. Next, it was the great roommate controversy. I was put in a room all by myself. It was an empty bed. And a white girl who had been squeezed into a room with 2 other girls knew me from WC. And she was a journalism major. We had classes together. So she moved in. We got along great. Matter of fact, 50-some years later, we are still very, very good friends. And when the administration found out about that, they didn't like that. So the next year, they made sure everybody was resegregated. That is, anyone who had had a white roommate previously no longer could. It was blacks with blacks, white with whites. But if you had requested a white roommate, somebody you got along with, which I had a case of that, the parents had to send fill a permission slip. It is all right for my daughter Louise White to room with Karen Parker Negro. And my parents got a similar one. It's all right for my daughter Karen Parker Negro to room with Louise Ambrosiano White. So when I found out about that, I took it to the Daily Tar Heel. This was clearly illegal. Okay, so that was my number 3 run-in with the administration. And the Dean of Women was always calling me in and telling me that I shouldn't be doing something or another. Didn't get anywhere with me. The jail thing went on for several months. Started fall of '63. Quite a number of arrests were made. We filled the jail in Chapel Hill, and some of the people were in Hillsborough. Otto White, who is in here, he just came in, one basketball game with Wake Forest, we blocked every intersection out of Chapel Hill. Whoa. And Otto and I were sitting at Franklin and Columbia. And frankly, I was really scared. And when the cops came and dragged me off, I was really very, very happy because there were some mad people with those blocked intersections. But Otto, would you stand up? Any other fellow jailbirds in here? Those were they. Anyway, what happened? We sort of failed at our effort. It didn't work. Fortunately, the Civil Rights Act of '64 was enacted the summer while we were out of school. We came back to school and we were able to go into restaurants and the movie theaters in Chapel Hill. Even though 2 restaurants in Chapel Hill had already desegregated on their own some time ago. The Carolina Coffee Shop, which is still here, and the other one was Harry's Restaurant, which was the headquarters for the civil rights people. I am not going to talk anymore, and I'm going to pass it on to Mr.
Thank you so much. As I said, John Sellars was one of the first members of the BSM. John, tell us a little bit about your time at Chapel Hill, high points, low points, and a little bit about the founding of the BSM.
Well, I went to UNC in 1967 because it was a better alternative than going to Vietnam in 1967.
Amen.
It was basically a way to survive by getting a college deferment, and I thought about going to Carolina. I would have a better chance of keeping that deferment than by going to a school that I might be distracted by parties and drinking and other things that students used to do back then. But when I got to Carolina, I was one of the first students to live in Hidden James, which I now see as being quite a distinction with the number of black students who come through Hidden James over the past few years. I think the other thing is that by me coming from Alamance County, I felt kind of isolated, so one of my first things was to find other black people, black guys. Weren't too many black women there at that time, but black guys who I could connect with, and fortunately I had some good friends who lived in Hidden James, and we connected and went through some things together. But I guess my most vivid memory is the beginning of BSM. And my experience was I was sitting in Lenore Hall one evening, eating my mashed potatoes, peas, and hamburger, trying to get through dinner. And all of a sudden on the north end, I see a group of black people congregating. I didn't know what they were doing. I'm trying to get through my dinner so I can get back to Hidden James and do my studies. All of a sudden, I see these group of people get together and start going from one end of Lenore Hall to the other end, turning over tables, throwing chairs, really disrupting the whole place. I didn't know where it came from or what it was about. I was just concerned about eating my mashed potatoes, my hamburger, and my peas before they got to me. So, right then, I had to make a decision. Now, these people are coming toward me, going from one end to the other. After they turn my table over, do I get up and walk outside, or do I turn the rest of the tables over with them? And so I decided I'm going to turn the rest of the tables over with them. And that was the BSM, well, that was before the BSM, but that was our first, I think, violent confrontation, trying to make a statement. And listening to what Karen was saying, listening to what Willie was saying, I think by that time, the students who were at Carolina had a attitude, we were tired and we didn't take it no more. So instead of trying to go along to get along, we said we're going to do it our way, and everything became very confrontational. Of course, things were confrontational all over the country. BSM, Black Panthers, things that were going on with Martin Luther King's assassination. And I think that in a sense we were caught up in it, and because we were from all over North Carolina, we came with the same sort of mentality. We're not going to go with the get along, to go along. We're going to take it into our own hands. And so BSM really began as a result of an alternative to the NAACP. There was an NAACP chapter. Oh, there was an NAACP chapter on campus, but the leadership there was not moving as fast as we felt things needed to move. And so there were a few people, we had good leadership. I think the people who were there when I got there in '67 had been influenced by the Willie Coopers and the Karen Parkers, and they decided that it's time for us to confront the administration. It's time for us to not just demonstrate, but to turn things over. And so at that time also is when the cafeteria workers were just being taken advantage of. And the BSM was the group who supported the cafeteria workers. They were not people who cooked the foods and served the foods. They were not people who cleaned up, kept the grounds. These were people that we came from. These were grandmothers. These were uncles. These were aunts. People who came in and cleaned up the rooms. You had uncles and aunts and grandmothers and sisters, mothers, who cleaned up rooms. So we could identify with those people, and we could protest on their behalf, but at the same time we were protesting on our behalf, because it wasn't a matter of being a student at UNC. It was a matter of being black at UNC. So, and from that, BSM grew, and I'm so glad to see the remnants, see the history, the legacy of the BSM, because it came out of conflict, and because of that conflict, many of us are here today. Because somebody decided, well, you know what, I'm not going to take it anymore. Willie's story sort of led to some athletes who I knew when I came in, who also were recruited, but you can come, but we can't give you a scholarship. Show us what you can do, and then we'll give you a scholarship. But in the meantime, we're going to make your life pure hell. Either on the court, on the field, or off the field. One of my great experiences knowing a guy named Rick Lanier, who was the first black football player to come to Carolina on a scholarship. I saw Marquise Williams yesterday, and then they could say, you know what? I remember the first black football player who came to Carolina on a scholarship. And he didn't have it as good, because Ricky was the only black player on the team. And so like Willie, if you don't get the support of your team and your coaches and the other people, you don't have a good time. So anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, John. John mentioned that there were very few African-American females on campus at that time, and that causes me to share with you the fact that even though I was before the BSM, we did have the BBC when I was here. Any of you familiar with the BBC? I know a few of you are. Before 1963, I don't believe there were any African-American female undergraduates on campus. So the African-American males called themselves the BBC, the Black Boys from Carolina. And it was not really an organization, it was just sort of an informal assemblage and a way of relating or whatever. And one day I mentioned to a white colleague something about the BBC. He said, well, that's a discriminatory organization. I said, not really. There are 3 white boys in the BBC. Ronald White, Otto White, and Sidney White.
Oh my God.
Bill?
In keeping with that, I think you should thank the girls over at North Carolina Central, Shaw University, St. Aug,
there you go.
A&T
All right.
That's Girls Women's College.
There you go.
All righty. Jimmy Bonds, pharmacy graduate. Jimmy, tell us a little bit about your experiences. And I know it was lonely over there in the School of Pharmacy.
Oh, my boy.
But my brief experience with the jail, the guy with, I don't know if you remember Preston Dobbins.
Yes.
Okay, so as I lived on campus with Juan, the Cofield twins, Juan and James, maybe some of you remember them too.
Yes, sir.
And Rich Davis. And we had wound up getting jail for a small time, and my daddy got called. And I was more afraid of him than I was of the police. So I was trying to get him to let me stay in jail. What he was gonna do. But I had gotten discouraged anyway, fed up. And I had a tough time after my freshman year. I didn't score so well. My study habits were not that good. And I had been given, after that, sort of tutorship by Mel Watt. I know some of you have known him. He kind of showed me how to study better study habits. But Daddy had come up from Greenville, and he had brought with him a little bag. Inside the bag, Yeah, do you remember the Texas products? Texas cleaning products? You know, heavy pine smell and everything. He bought a bottle of Texas and a brush, a bottle of shoe polish, shoe shine and all that. So look in the bag. And I looked in there and I said, well, what? He said, well, you quit school, you flunk out of school. This is what you're going to be doing the rest of your life. So I didn't work 3 jobs, you know, so you come back here, go back and work in the barber shop, shine shoe. So I respected that because he was smarter than I ever was. And I worked through that, and I always wanted to please my dad. I always respected him because he was a very hard worker, a Christian man that had good, strong beliefs, and I never wanted to disappoint him. But I learned a lot here. I learned a lot from the Cofield twins. I learned a lot from just watching those, see those gentlemen over there, there's Judge Hoover, Dr. Hoover. They have a cousin by the name of Elmer Pfeiffer that I would watch. He was so savvy. He knew how to get things done. I never said anything, but I watched those guys because they knew a lot more than I knew. When I came from Green, I didn't know what a mall was. But I said, we're going to the mall. I didn't know what a theater, play. I thought it was a movie, but I learned a lot just watching those people. I learned a lot of Carolina, and it was not the same as it is now. They played Dixie. I never was stand Roberts. I went to A&T, Bennett, and Central to help them celebrate their homecoming. Don't you say a word, I bought my walking stick. It was quite different. But my experience here in Carolina, I learned so much about how to adapt. Because they put me in those classes. I was the only one, of course, I never had another black student in class with me, except for one history class. I was in there with Alvin Holloway. I don't know if any of you remember him. And we actually dominated Civil War class. He and I, so we got an interest in just being good in the class. But all other classes, no black professor, no black students to connect with. It was just different. So it taught me and gave me the strength, courage in myself, and confidence to adapt for anything that would come in my life, which has benefited me very much. So it worked out to be positive, so I appreciate the experience. And I've been very fortunate, I've got this wonderful granddaughter over there who just, by the way, told me this morning, Grandpa scored 98 in my percentile on a standardized test. And she's already talking about the youth of Carolina. It's the Carolina, of course. Saved up there, the son there, wife there, out there. I've been very fortunate and blessed, but this was quite an experience. And I see and have mentored many students on the pharmacy side. Some of them are directors of pharmacy across some of the hospitals. I got one up in Moses Cone. Like that. But the experiences I share with them and how to bring them along has really been a blessing to me to look back and say, hey, it's really worth it. I would do it all over again. I would do it all over again because as I see you, a bunch of young ones out there, it was worth it. Somebody, the pioneers get the brush in their face, but it clears the way for a lot of our people to go on. So I would like to do it again.
Aren't these just fascinating stories? Yeah. I wish we could go on and on with them, but we're running out of time. What I am going to do is, I just made reference to Otto White, who was one of the 3 white boys in the BBC. Otto said he never missed his church, so he went to his church service this morning, but just joined us a few minutes ago. That's one of the reasons he couldn't be on the panel. but he has one or two fascinating stories, very interesting to me. But I'd like to depart from the program and invite Otto to come up and spend no more than 3 minutes sharing a little bit of his experience at Chapel Hill with you. Otto White.
I'm going to share just 2 stories with you. One that Karen mentioned. Oh, Karen moved on. Karen mentioned the fact that after the Wake Forest game, we got arrested at Columbia and Franklin Street. Well, to all my experience in Chapel Hill, the jail was on Rosemary Street, 1 block over from Franklin Street. Okay. I had a sister going to NCCU, and anytime there was a demonstration in Durham, she would call, and Lester Carson had a little small thing, and we all stack into that Renault thing and drive to Durham and demonstrate at the Howard Johnson, which used to be on 15501. And when we got to jail, when they got us to jail, they would process us. Then our dilemma was to try to find out our transportation back to Chapel Hill. When they arrested us in Chapel Hill, instead of taking us to Rosemary Street, they took us to Hillsborough. And we were stacked in jail, and instead of getting processed right away, which was important to me because I had a chemistry exam that next day, we stayed in jail all night. And they served us cold grilled cheese sandwiches from one of the restaurants we were picketing. So that was one of the problems. Okay, the other story I tell you is that, to my knowledge, in that group in the 60s, Willie Cooper and I are probably the only ones that married a girl from Chapel Hill. So 48 years with my wife, Lucille Hope.
Like I said, before Watkins back up here, Coop could really hit that shot from the corner. He could really hit that shot. He deserved it, Bill.
And he was something to behold on the court. And for those of you who've seen him standing, he still looks like he could get out there and go up and down the court. Karen Parker, let me ask you to share a bit more with us, please.
The name of this was the Real Nitty Gritty. And part of the worst thing for the early blacks in North Carolina was the indignity of it all that we had to suffer and to stay in school. And I will tell you the worst thing that ever happened to me. I was walking across campus, took a class, and I always cut through the men's quad. And one day, there were a bunch of drunk, couple of white guys, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 of them, in a window, and they started yelling out at me. And they weren't just yelling racial things, they were yelling sexual things. And I'm doing my best to try to ignore them, and my insides are ready to explode. How dare you, because of the color of my skin, you think that you can put me on that level? I mean, I have suppressed exactly everything they said to me, but it was sort of on the order, hey you, why don't you come up here and do such and such for me, okay? And just let your imaginations go on some of the worst stuff you ever heard. So that is nitty gritty and tough stuff. I wanted you to know that story because that's the kinds of things we had to go through.
Anybody have a quick positive that they'd like to share about
As Kara mentioned, there were a lot of indignities just by being on campus. I think Jim mentioned that you might be the only black student in a class of 500 students. I remember my first Chem 101 class was in an auditorium, and I wound up sitting in the middle of the auditorium. Well, at the end of class, other students get with other students, say, hey, we're going to get together, study for this test. I didn't have everybody to get together with. So you had a lot of indignities that you suffered. Another classmate of mine burned the Confederate flag in front of the Kappa Alpha fraternity house. Now, nobody had ever done that before. And I think that changed things. There was another incident where we were in Mom's restaurant one night, and there were some guys who were there. They made some before I knew it, the guy who was drunk and made me a dignity was outside, and as soon as he walked outside, two black guys who were BSM members, one had him behind his arms, they got him behind his arms, and the other guy, who was pretty heavy at that time, put about 260 pounds of torque in his jaw. And police came. The police came and they wanted to know what had happened because this guy was falling out on the ground and we were standing around looking at him. And one of the other guys who was with us, with all this name too, said, "Blue slips, Shink steps, ships." And that was the end of it. But it was those kind of things, I think, that we built upon a lot of the anger that had come before us, a lot of the indignities, a lot of the things that we saw as being wrong. And the other thing was we moved in numbers. When you only have less than 200 students, black students, on a campus of 23,000, 22,000 students, there is strength in numbers. And last incident, last story, there used to be a way that you got your student tickets to go to basketball games. You had to line up to do that. Sometimes the line would be from Carmichael all the way down the street and around the corners. Well, there was a group of guys, DSMers, and we just said, well, we'll just get together as a group, and we walk up to the front of the line and just stand there and talk to each other so that when they opened the gate, we would just get our tickets. So there was a lot of things that, for me, that was one of the positive things, was being audacious. And being audacious at a time where you're doing good, too. So that's what it was.
Jimmy Womack, the cheerleader, said that he's had some lonely times in his life, but some of his times here at Carolina were some of the loneliest times of his life. And it was a lonely time for many of us as African Americans in those days. But at the same time, we had each other. And the camaraderie and friendship and support that we had for each other was a beautiful thing. Okay, what I'm going to do is try to end this program as close to 1 o'clock as I can, but I'm sure there are some others who are like me and dying to hear more, are really interested in hearing more. So we will move in a few moments to end the program, and then I'm going to open the floor for questions or conversation, and we can continue another 20 minutes, half hour, whatever. But I'm sure there's some of you who are thinking, well, I told so-and-so I'd be, or I've got this appointment, so I don't want to keep you here unnecessarily. Couple more recognitions before we go. Camille Roddy, are you here? Okay, Camille was here. Camille was the, I'm sorry, where? Right there, there you are. Okay, very good. Camille was chair of BAR the year we formed the organization and did a tremendous job in making us feel welcome and part of BAR. I just want to acknowledge her and the support. She's been with us ever since, by the way. We've adopted her as one of our own. Some of us call her baby sister. I also want to thank again the Alumni Association representatives. Marcy, is that you standing back there? And Tania Pettis. Tania, would you, I know you're modest and you don't like to claim credit, but if you would please come in the door. Ladies and gentlemen, Tania has been a hero for us in this reunion for many years. I see her first thing in the morning and last thing at night when I'm here. I think I heard her say a little while ago that she's had 15 hours of sleep since Tuesday. She's a workhorse and does a tremendous job. Marcy, welcome to the
Positive note was
Closes the 35th bar reunion. May the fellowship and the rekindled friendship that we experienced this weekend inspire us to be pioneers in removing remaining barriers at UNC so that this university can truly live up to its motto, the University of the People. May God grant safe traveling mercies and his blessing until we meet again. Amen.
Amen.
If you would stand, please, for the singing of the alma mater.
picture. We're gonna be working it. Okay. All right. Oh, right there. That's cool. Okay. Black Pioneers, UNC-Chapel Hill. 2015. History. Tighten up. And okay. Amen. What a great day. What a great day. Henry and Edith. There is Zelda. Man's photographer. Yeah, those pioneers again. Awesome opportunity. Young girls.
Certainly hope you enjoyed that wonderful panel discussion. Of course, a brunch with Black pioneers, of course, the real nitty gritty, the Black experience at UNC-Chapel Hill a half century ago. Thank you to all of the panelists, everybody associated with this committee, the chairperson, and of course, moderator, and of course, those instrumental with the Black Alumni Reunion, and of course, the Alumni Association at UNC-Chapel Hill. Hark the sound of Tar Heel voices, ringing clear and true, singing Carolina's praises, shouting NCU, held to the brightest star of all, clear its radiance shine. Carolina, priceless gem, receive all praises thine. I'm Rose Highland Sharpe, class of 1980 and 83. Shout out to all of my fellow Tar Heels. And honey, as always, if you're walking the walk, you'll be on Town Talk too. Take care and God bless.